All right, so the Department of Defense is going to review the list of medical conditions that disqualify potential recruits from serving, which is huge because if you ever tried to join the military in the past and you were denied because of a medical waiver that either temporarily or permanently disqualified you, now the DoD is going to revisit that entire list to now allow new conditions that were previously permanently disqualified to be allowed, or to allow them to go through the waiver process with or without a waiver, which is great because if you've ever tried to join the military and you had a condition outside of your control that did not stop you from serving, you go to MEPS, you try to enlist, only to find out that you have X, Y, or Z wrong with you, and you're told, hey, I'm sorry, you are permanently disqualified from the military. Or, hey, you need a waiver, and you submit a waiver, only to find out that it gets denied. It's kind of heartbreaking, especially when you have that urge and that desire to serve. Being told no, it can hurt. But now in 2025, they're going to review that list that's been going on for many, many years to allow new conditions that were previously temporarily or permanently disqualifying to now potentially be allowed for those to serve. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down and I'm going to cover this list and kind of let you know the new updates and what's going on and how that can benefit you going forward. So it says the Department of Defense will review the list of medical conditions that automatically disqualify potential recruits from joining the military or require a waiver to serve. Now, this is for all branches, and this is called the BUMED, or the Bureau of Medicine. These are the ones that actually run these waivers and do this for all branches. Now, it said last week, this Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth had this order under the Secretary of Defense of Personnel Readiness to review the medical standards for a session to determine whether any automatically disqualifying. So this one says the Department of Defense instruction, or the DoD 6130.03. So that's DODI 6130.03, outlines the medical standards for potential recruits and officer accessions and allows applicants who do not meet the standards to be considered for a waiver. This is called the BUMED, or the waiver process. And if you've tried to enlist, you've experienced this, or you know exactly what I'm talking about. A pilot program, the Medical Accession Records Pilot, was introduced back in 2022 to allow potential recruits with 38 medical conditions to join the service without a waiver as long as they met other requirements. That program expanded to 51 conditions such as common diagnosis, including ADHD, ADD, and childhood asthma. The pilot eliminated the waiver requirement for individuals previously diagnosed with ADHD if they did not receive medical treatment for the condition for 1 year. In the past, it had to be 3 years. That meant you had to be off ADHD medication for 3 years before you could enlist. Now it's 1, but I've seen people off medication for less than 6 months who were granted waivers. So just keep that in mind. Also, for those with asthma, if they haven't used an emergency inhaler in the last 4 years. So that means if you have an asthma attack or you have an asthma and use an inhaler for 4 years, but I've seen people with less than 1 year get waivers allowed. So again, these are like the big picture ones. It can go down from there. According to reports, more than 6,000 personnel enlisted through this pilot program between 2022 and 2024. Now, in 2023, a DoD Inspector General review found that 17% of recruits in 2022 received a waiver to join, up from 12% back in 2013. Across all services, 77% of the 54,206 waivers requests were granted, with the Marine Corps having the highest approval rate, accepting 7,955 out of 8,124 waivers, which is an astonishing 98%. So this is saying that 98% of waivers that were given through the Marine Corps were accepted, which is huge because the Marine Corps is the strictest and the most difficult branch, but they're the ones who are giving out 98% of the waivers. So if you're considering joining, or if you need a waiver and you're being told no elsewhere, consider the Marine Corps because they have the absolute highest approval rating as of right now. The Navy only accepted 84%. The Army accepted 69%, and the Air Force was at the bottom with a 65% approval rating. Now, this kind of ties into, other branches missing their recruiting goals over the last few years by more than 10 to 15,000, and they think that allowing the waivers of common things would help allow branches and other services to meet their recruiting goals. This kind of goes hand in hand with the military and not automatically disqualifying those who have non-life threatening or non-major concerns or conditions to serve, which again, I agree. I think that's a good thing. So now on this past Monday, the defense secretary said that they're going to review for the next 30 days the current DODI or the DoD policy, and they're going to sit there and identify medical conditions that should be ineligible for medical waiver to then allow them to be seen for medical waiver. So they're going to just essentially review the policy and hopefully add more conditions to the policy to allow those with certain conditions that were previously disqualifying to enlist now, which again is a huge step in the right direction. And I'm 100% on board with this. I think it's great, especially from a recruiting aspect. Now, they go on to say that they don't want to compromise the high standards that the military has, that we're still, America's force and readiness, the most lethal and effective fighting force in the world, and they want to retain that, which again, I agree, but I don't think that allowing certain medical conditions to enlist is going to erode that by any means. Again, I think it's a step in the right direction, something that we should be doing anyways. Now, they said that they don't detail how many individuals were let into the service with those previously conditions under waiver, but stipulated that the DoD should never compromise the high standards, which again, I don't think they are by doing this. The last part of this talks about some of the conditions that they're talking about allowing. Now, this can be controversial on, one way or another, but it goes on to say that after they review this, right, they're going to go through, they're going to hopefully add more waivers, but they're also going to probably take some things away. Now, a few of the ones they're going to take away could include schizophrenia for obvious reasons, paraphylactic disorders, which I'm not even sure what that is, congestive heart failures, and chronic use of oxygen. So if you fall into that category, which was previously allowed and waiverable, that might soon go away. And again, that's a good and bad thing. If you have certain mental health conditions or you have dependency on certain things, the military is probably not the best route for you. So again, they're basically doing an entire overhaul for the next 30 days. So hopefully by the start of the summertime, we have an updated list, an updated policy of to now what is allowed, what's no longer allowed. So for those seeking the waiver process, for those who are needing a waiver to enlist or who are considering enlisting, who have a current medical condition, have a new updated way forward. But again, this is definitely a step in the right direction and definitely something that can help out tens of thousands of potential applicants and recruits across the country. So stay tuned. I will make another video and I will update this when it comes out. But again, this is definitely a step in the right direction. If you guys have any questions or whatnot, drop it down below. Check out my Instagram, shoot me a message, ask away, and check out the Discord. There's an entire Discord with a waivers process, with a waiver area. So if you got questions, I have answers, and talk to you guys soon. See you next time.